Well, as major portions of the U.S. economy remain mostly shut down amid the coronavirus pandemic, Congress is weighing the possibility of another round of fiscal stimulus. On Friday, the House passed the HEROES Act, but the Democrat-drafted bill has been declared dead on arrival by Republicans in the Senate. I do now want to bring in Washington Examiner reporter Brad Polumbo to discuss what's included in that bill and what Congress can actually do in the future. Hi, Brad. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks.
Let's start off with the HEROES Act. It did pass the Democrat-controlled House on Friday. What's actually included in that bill?
Well, first and foremost, apparently Nancy Pelosi thinks that even though we're going to run a $3.8 trillion deficit this year, we just haven't spent enough of our grandchildren's money yet, because she wants to pass this bill into law that would spend another $3 trillion, a whopping sum. And what's in that bill is a lot of things. It's kind of a partisan wish list of goodies and carve-outs, but the biggest things are a bailout for state and local governments who are having budgetary problems, many of which long preceded the coronavirus, and another round of $1,200 stimulus checks. I mean, the last ones went to some dead people, and a lot of people didn't actually spend them, but Nancy Pelosi wants to send out more. And most importantly, it would expand the supercharged unemployment insurance that's paying 50% of workers more to stay on unemployment than go back to work. It would extend that through 2021, more or less putting the economy in a welfare state coma. So that's the bill that Nancy Pelosi is trying to get passed.
Let's talk a little bit more about that expanded unemployment. One major concern for many employers amid this pandemic is that expansion that happened, of course, first under the CARES Act through July. And you mentioned in the HEROES Act they want to expand it to the end of the year. Many companies now are facing the concern of employees not returning to work because they're now actually making more on unemployment than they would working. How detrimental would that be for our economy if we do expand these benefits further?
Well, who can blame them, right? You're a worker who's laid off during the pandemic, and the boss calls you 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later. They're trying to reopen partially and get you back on the payroll to qualify under their Small Business Administration loan, but you're getting paid more due to the $600 surplus the federal government's now adding on top of regular unemployment benefits. You're getting paid more to stay home. That's true for 50% of workers. And a report from the Heritage Foundation found that even continuing this benefit through July 31st, the original deadline, would have drastic economic consequences and result in 14 million additional people going on unemployment insurance. Now, Nancy Pelosi wants to put that out through 2021, that same supercharged unemployment insurance. And the only economic impact anyone sensible can draw from that is that no real reopening of our economy can happen as long as that benefit is in place, because the incentives just don't work.
One interesting thing that's been happening during this pandemic is a surge in Americans saving, not spending money. When you're giving people this bigger unemployment, these larger unemployment benefits and sending out stimulus checks, the whole notion of that is to stimulate the economy, push people to spend more money, but we're not necessarily seeing that kind of activity happening for Americans as they are concerned about the possibility of how long this could be lasting. How can Congress actually work to stimulate the economy and get people back to spending and participating in this economy?
Well, it's an important question because spending is ultimately what will get the economy going, consumer demand. But Nancy Pelosi's plan to do this in the HEROES Act is to give everybody $1,200 checks again for several months now this time. That will have the same problem as it did the first time in the CARES Act. Over 30% of people just saved them. Other people spent them on frivolous things, and only a small chunk actually spent it right away or spent it on essentials. So what you really need to have a form of targeted aid. Cutting blank checks to everybody includes people like me who are journalists and our salaries aren't affected. Of course, that's not going to stimulate spending. So we need a narrowly targeted government plan that's just going to help us get consumer demand by getting cash in the hands of those who need it most.
All right, Brad Polumbo, reporter for the Washington Examiner, joining us to talk about the House-passed HEROES Act. Of course, no chance of that passing in the Senate, and then of what Congress could do to actually stimulate the U.S. economy. Thanks so much for coming on the show today, Brad.
Thanks.
Want to see more videos like this? Click on the link below and subscribe to One America News on YouTube, and call your cable provider and kindly demand that One America News is added to your lineup. Call and subscribe today.